Hi everyone, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. Welcome to another lecture. And today we have a very cool topic. We're going to talk about a new approach in the semi-Slav, specifically in the Meran variation from white point of view. So we'll wait for a few more people to jump on the Zoom call. In the meantime, as always, I will be asking you questions throughout the lecture. I want it to be as interactive as possible, and please type your answers in the chat box, which I will be monitoring. And let's give maybe a couple more seconds for everyone to settle in. By the way, how do you like the recent big chess event, the World Chess Championship? I was rooting for Ding myself, but it was a really fun event. Anybody else was rooting for Ding in that one? Oh, a lot of people in the chat. Nice. Good to hear. You guys also very interesting. Yeah. Okay, so maybe let's get going. And then as new people jump on the Zoom call, they'll be able to join us. All right, so today we're going to talk more conceptual, and then we're going to do a deep dive into concrete moves. So we're talking about the semi-Slav setups where white goes for, of course, move 1, d4. Black typically reacts with d5, and after c4, c6, so first kind of invitation to the Slav. Here we have a lot of major crossroads already. In today's theme, we're actually talking about this move, knight c3, okay? And after the move, typically you see the move e6 or knight f6. Knight f6 is a little bit more common. White has no intention at all to get the bishop to f4, g5, and these setups. White chooses what is called the Meran, where the pawn goes to e3. So basically not interested in any sort of direct fight right out of the opening. Black in turn sets up this triangle. So this is the theme, the triangle setup from black against all of these white's options. Again, we're looking at it from the white point of view. Who are the big proponents of the setup for black? Well, lots of top players play this. Sam Shankland is probably the most famous. He has a Chessable course on this. Magnus has played this for black. Dink has played this for black. I mean, you name it, all the top guys have played this. This is a very flexible setup. Typically, what does black want in this triangle? Bishop goes to d6. At some point, the castle, knight goes to d7, pawn goes to b6, bishop to b7, queen on e7. And let me actually show you the concrete moves. So b3 is going to be my approach. I'm not going to play knight f3 yet, but let me back up a little bit and show you the main line, which is knight f3, knight f6, e3. Again, white is not playing knight c3, which is a totally different opening altogether. There is d takes c4, the main Slav. There is e6, which may transpose if white chooses to play e3. But e3 is sort of the how a lot of people get here with e6, knight c3, knight bd7, queen c2. This is sort of the modern way of playing this. Now, if bishop goes to d3, that may allow d takes c4 in the future, now or after castles. This is a big line, and then they play for like this b5 pawn push. Okay, so what are we going to be discussing? First, let's talk about the slow buildup with b3, castles, bishop e2, that's the most common, b6, castles, bishop b7, bishop b2, queen e7. As I say, this is black's dream setup. Black is pretty much aiming for this position in every one of these Meran variations. Now, how many of you have played these types of positions? Let me know in the chat for white or for black, just to get an idea. A lot of you probably know this from Sam Shankland's Chessable course. Not that many, not yet at least. I play QGD, but not Slav. All right, so some people are somewhat familiar with this, but not maybe fully familiar with this. Okay, not bad, not bad. So basically, at least even if you don't play this, guys, you know what the plan is, right? The plans for white are trying to maintain the center. Maybe you bring the rooks into d1 or e1. Maybe you play a timely e4 push. What are the plans for black? Black wants to play for c5. Sometimes you bring the rooks like this. Now, the funny part, if you are a d4 player and black goes for this setup, it's not that easy to crack. It's not that easy because black kind of knows what to do. This is like they probably played like dozens and dozens of games with this position. So I've got a novel idea for you because a lot of people play this as black. So if you're a d4 player, you may enjoy this idea. One of the ideas is, remember, besides the c5 push, there's also e5 push. And it turns out that this knight on f3 wants to jump to f5. But you would have to go to h4, f5. It's a little bit awkward when e5 is played. So this sort of prompted people to try to look for other setups for white, unconventional setups. What do I mean by unconventional setups? Let me go back all the way to the beginning. And I'm going to try to save a tempo on the move knight f3. So I'm still going for this knight c3, e3 plan. Black goes for this dream setup that I just highlighted for you guys. And let's say black blindly follows the recommendations. Okay, blindly. So we play our moves are white and black plays their moves. And I want to show you what could happen. Okay, what could happen here? So b3, flexible move, right? White has the option to not put the knight on f3 quite yet. So white may play bishop d3 next. Okay, now let's say black blindly follows the recommendation knight bd7. We're going to come back and talk about improvements for black. By the way, knight bd7 may not be already be the most accurate move here. Yes, Vihan, that's probably the better move. So we're going to come back, talk about this move. We're going to talk back just to show you what he meant is there's this bishop b4 option. So we're going to come back and talk about this move as well. But let's say black blindly goes for their plan. They don't know what white's going to do with this g1 knight yet. Okay, so bishop d3. Again, bishop b4 is an option. Black, let's say, blindly plays bishop d6 just to show you what could happen if your opponent doesn't know these nuances. We play bishop b2, castles, knight g2. Okay, so far so good. And black plays b6, which already may be slight inaccuracy, believe it or not. Black wants to put the bishop on b7, queen on e7. Okay, so let's see what happens. Castles, bishop b7, knight g3. And here I said it's already a dream position for white. This is funny. We put the knight on f3, lots and lots of GM games, big fight. We put a knight on g3, and I call this the dream position. The knight shifts away from the center by 1 square. Chess is a funny game, right, guys? Who can tell me why this is a dream position for white? Again, please type your answer in the chat. Yep, both Vihan and Aryan, you guys are correct. Anybody else? Yep, Angela also correct. Yeah, a lot of people are saying this correctly. So yeah, it's very difficult to break with e5 because knight f5. This gives white this extra option. Also, the knight on g3 supports the e4 push. And if the knight recaptures, that bishop's going to be attacked. So this is one of those funny prophylactic ideas that black does not have a good answer to. Now you would say, oh, I know this. This is bad for black. This is well known. Well, how many GMs do you think know this stuff? As a matter of fact, I'm going to show you some interesting statistic in a moment, and you will be shocked by this statistic. All right, let's do a quick guess. If I were to turn on the database right now, what do you think white statistic is in this position? Just from this position. Okay, let's see what people are saying. Not bad, not bad. You guys are having pretty good guesses here. So let me do this online search. You're gonna see quickly. Okay. Can you guys see this? Statistic here. And let me just show you a couple of things here. Every move is what? Between 100%, 87, 90%, 75%. That's not good. That's not good, guys. And by the way, look at the names. Carlson, Duda, 1-zip. A lot of these GMs, 1-0. Juven June, right? The world champion, former world champ, right? Peter Lecco, Vinay Butt, he's a strong GM from California, doesn't play anymore. Brandon Jacobson, you guys know him. Even this guy won the game, but I don't know. He played the lower rated guy, so that I can't quite. That's probably the only win. Yeah, that's the only win in the database. So that's bad news, guys, right there for Black. But let's try to understand why that is so. Why this is bad news. Magnus Carlsen played it. That's right. When Magnus plays something, you know that it has to be good. That's actually going to be one of our STEM games as Magnus playing white against Duda. So first, we're going to try to understand why this position is not good for Black. And then we'll come back and I'll talk through with ways Black can try to avoid it to get a fighting game. All right, so let's keep going. If the knight is on e4, white is superiorly better. Yep, that's right. Yeah, there are some strategic problems here for Black. What happens if g6, Andrew is asking? G6, I think, is quite weakening move. I don't think anyone has played it, but let's answer Andrew's question, guys. Can you guys answer this question? What is the drawback of g6 here? Yeah, I think e4 is the main drawback. This bishop on b2 is quite happy having some nice long diagonal here, right? Kind of for free. And if you ever take, oh, that's bad news. I think I will take with the c knight. And as you will see, just like Carlsen Duda, the bishops are going to be quite important. Yeah, this is a nice edge, right, guys, for white. Some timely d5 push, this bishop has to retreat. So this is just bad position. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, so again, for those of you who are just joining us, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn, and I'm showing a brand new or relatively rare, let's put it, setup with the knight, instead of going to f3 in the Meran, goes to e2 and g3 to support the e4 pawn push. Okay, so this is the Semislav Meran. Meran is where white sort of puts the pawn on e3. That's what makes it very unique. All right, so let's go back. And what are the most logical moves? I would say c5 is really logical here. And we're going to look at that first. There is rook e8, which has been played, so we'll come back and look at that as well. But first, let's look at c5. All right, guys, now that you are not experts, but at least you know the main ideas, what shall white play here? So we're going to follow some STEM games by top players. All right, so most players, well, I don't know about the move knight b5. Knight b5 looks a little bit unattractive for me because the bishop can just retreat and that knight could get hit. So I think most players are sort of gravitating toward the right approach, which is to take on d5. Gordon says rook d1. Some people said f3. Some people mentioned f4 is interesting, but I don't like it against c5. So I think c takes d is the most logical. So now black has a big dilemma, guys. Black has so many different moves. And one of the biggest mistakes in chess happens when you have a lot of options and you don't know which ones you choose, right? So I could see your opponent making a bad decision here. Okay, so there's lots of ways to recapture. There's even the c takes d4, which is our main line. This is what most players do. This one is not as good. And I'm going to show you in another example game why not. This is sort of white's dream. The knight could come to f5, right? This we sort of discussed this. The other drawback of this is black could be left with this hanging pawn situation, and the bishops could reign supreme in the center of the board. So we're going to talk about this example as well. Yeah, so both knight f5 and d takes c are pretty promising here. So, well, c takes d was played in a lot of games. Now we actually, believe it or not, enter a more dynamic rather than sort of slow static positional battle. Knight c to e4, exclam. Notice the point of white's opening idea comes into play. The bishop is hit with a tempo. All right, so now if knight takes e4, we're going to take with the knight. And just to illustrate the point, let's say knight c5, we can simply trade, take, bishop c4, and if they take, we take. White is a little bit better here. Again, we have a major threat on g7. We have a pin. This bishop is pinned. The rooks are coming in rather fast. Very easy to play for white. So let's come back and see what Duda played in this position. He took on g3. Okay, a lot of people took on g3 in the database as well. Magnus took, so white now has two bishops advantage, but there is still quite mess here in the center. So black can either take the d pawn or keep taking pawns. So Duda, I think, took on e3. This is our main move, but let's pause for a moment. After bishop takes d5, bishop takes d4, and look at this position for a little bit. Again, guys, for those who are new and joining us, this is Grandmaster Eugene Perelshteyn. We're going over the semi-Slav Meran variation, the fresh idea knight e2 and knight g3, rather than the more common knight f3 move. And now white's two bishops is kind of difficult to challenge. And there was one game that black played, I believe, bishop back to b7, queen e2. Why not? Just connecting the rooks. Rook c8, rook c1, and after rook takes, rook takes. Brandon Jacobson, that you guys know, he's a pretty strong GM. Just very recently, he ended up converting his small advantage here. So I really love the two bishops here, right? It's not easy. And this knight could actually play a vital role. Like if e5 happens, f5 square gets weakened. You may have this knight h5 idea to try to attack the king by opening up more room for your bishops. It's just a very unpleasant position. Still, you know, black has rock solid structure. It's not like there's game over or anything like that. It's just white is favorable here. 0.04. Ariana's thinking maybe, probably. This is a pure defensive setup. All right, so let's come back and Duda, who is a well-known, you know, top 15, top 20 GM. He is facing Magnus in this position. And after he takes, he decides, all right, I'm going to go all in. I'm just going to keep taking stuff. By the way, for those who are calculating, black ends up winning the pawn. So Magnus took, pawn takes, with check, so we have to take back, and pawn takes. All right, so the question now to everyone is, evaluate this position. All right, so let's put on your eval hats on. And black does have the extra pawn, white gets the 2 bishops. How would you value this position? Look at all the other factors. All right, most players are getting this correctly. Let me just give you guys a little bit more time. So yeah, when you do the evals, you can write me in whatever form you prefer. You can use like the engine point something or minus point something, or you can say plus equal, equal plus equal. I take any one of these, whatever you guys prefer. You can also write out your why you think it's I like language. So like, compare different factors, why you prefer certain factors over others. Okay. So I'm getting sort of the feel that most guys are saying white is better. And the evals are kind of between plus equal to plus over minus. So like 0.4, 0.3, 2 plus 1. Josh says 0, 0, 0 because stockfish always find a way to draw. That is maybe the case. Maybe stockfish always find a way to draw. But again, when you are evaluating the positions, you are playing humans, not engines. And we want to try to be, using human concepts. All right, so basically most of you are correct. White is better here. White is not winning. I would not go as far as to say it's +1. You are down a pawn after all. Black is still quite rock solid, but it's basically the two major factors are this isolated pawn versus the power of the 2 bishops, right, guys? It all comes down to these 2 factors. And some people say, well, the extra pawn will balance out the 2 bishops. Some will say the extra pawn is too weak, 2 bishops are dominating, and you are more correct. The pawn is too weak and the bishops are overwhelmingly dominating. If black manages to trade queens, however, then white's not going to be able to checkmate black, right? It's going to be very difficult to generate the attack. So I think the hidden problem for black is actually the king. If you said black's king is weaker than white's king, that's sort of the underlying problem for black here. Because the bishops are very powerful, the queen, the knight, the f-file, all of this could play a vital role. It's not obvious how to get to that king, right? So let's see how Magnus proceeds. Magnus plays this near perfect, I have to say. So again, he is the now ex-world champion, the former world champion, but still #1 player in the world and still the best player in the world. So we have to still take this guy seriously. So let's see what happens. So queen e2. As I said, white is a pawn down, but 2 bishops a nice target, give him a pleasant position. The e pawn is weak. Knight c5. Your bishop's under attack on c4. And what's interesting is that Magnus is not in a hurry to start the checkmate and attack. First, he actually plays a lot of preliminary moves. Just simply bishop to c2. Sometimes simple chess like this is the way to go. He still has this rook that's not active. He may want to bring it to d1 or e1 or even f1, depending on the circumstances. b4, hitting the knight, and this e-pawn is all up in the air. So bishop a6 is played. Of course, it looks like Duda's got the initiative. Knight attacked the bishop, bishop attacked the queen, queen has to retreat, but things are still not easy for black. Why? After queen e1, he doesn't really have easy jumps to d3, right? The e-pawn is too weak, so he plays queen e8, overprotecting that e-pawn. Now gives white some precious time to regroup. Rook d1, as I mentioned, that's one of the common ideas. So black plays rook c8. And now b4 exclam. This idea we already discussed, right, earlier. I already give this plus over minus. We're approaching more than +1 territory if you use Stockfish. Stockfish may already give +2, and +2 is like, in Stockfish world, is like close to winning. In human world, I wouldn't necessarily say this is close to winning. It's a clear edge, but we still need to be precise, right? Speaking about computer evals, when you guys watch Nepo versus Ding, yeah, there were a lot of pretty big serious jumps in eval, whereas those guys did not even realize it. It just tells you that the engines are way better than humans, and certain positions they can just calculate to precise win. Like, remember that? Yeah, somebody already mentioned it. The rook sack by Nepo in one of the games. Remember that Ding was +7 in that game. All he had to do is take the rook, run the king right in the middle of the board through all the pieces, and then run back, and then he wins. Well, good luck if you don't know that your king survives to calculate that out. Yeah, the engines are just too good. So sometimes you have to be a little bit, give these guys a break, right? They are, after all, after Magnus, the next best player. So let's give them a break. All right. Oh, you're able to calculate that one. Okay, that's good to hear. So knight b7 is played in this game. Let's keep going. So Magnus simply builds up with knight e4. Why did he play knight e4? That's the thematic idea. You remove one of the defenders of the king, whereas both of these guys are just kind of hanging out there, doing really nothing compared to where this king is. Remember what I said, this is the real problem for black, that king. So knight d5, okay, he doesn't want to trade, obviously, because queen can take on e4 with the tempo. And now knight g5 is crushing, I have to say, but what Magnus did is also really, really good. He just simply takes with check. Okay, queen took, and then again, bishop b3 or bishop b1. It's a matter of taste. Both moves, one is like +3, I think. This is closer to +3. This is like +2. It's a personal taste kind of thing. I like Magnus's move to keep the bishop looking on this h7 pawn, open diagonal. Duda says, well, if I'm gonna go down fighting, I might as well grab another pawn. Well, guys, now it's your turn to put on your tactics hats on today. How can you play as white? Try to guess Magnus's next move. All right, everybody is getting the right idea. Good job, everyone. Let's give you some more time. Now, what if, yeah, I think you guys got it. Yeah, everyone's pretty much getting this, maybe except 1 or 2 people. I think most got it. So yeah, the correct move is knight f6. This is pretty easy tactic. Obviously, if they take the knight, queen takes, hits the rook. Now, king h8 was played in the game. How would you continue the theme of attack? So again, this is not that difficult, I think. Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. Magnus just took, oops, let me move the rook a little back. Yeah, so you're hitting the rook. Notice the rook has no good squares. Where are you going to put the rook? So Duda had to put the rook all the way to a8. Imagine getting this position in 25 moves against the world champ as black, and you have to play the move rook a8. This is pretty pathetic, right? So yeah, now Magnus just takes, and Duda just resigned. Wow, what a game. And this was a relatively recent game. from 2020, Magnus just dominated. Duda was already rated 2757, as you can see here. Where did Black go wrong? It's not obvious. This position, if we go back here, where he went for this force and sequence, is just difficult to play. I think no top GM is going to repeat this position. So that means they would have to look elsewhere. But where do you improve? Like, we saw that this is very unpleasant, right? The structure with queen takes d4. We also saw after bishop takes d5 is unpleasant. That means this position is already bad. After c takes d5 is already bad. So we're going to come back to this game and we're going to go back at the very beginning to try to improve. But first, I want to show you another great example where e takes d was played, which I believe is in my next game, which is Kuzubov against Ronka, 2281. Not a strong player. This is actually Title Tuesday Blitz game. So notice how Kuzubov, he's a Ukrainian GM, 2600 strong GM. He plays knight c3 and bishop d3. So notice how he saves the tempo on b3. He's going to play b3 later. Maybe he doesn't want to invite bishop b4, perhaps. I think maybe that's his idea. Knight d7, knight bd7, b3 now. Of course, now there is bishop b4. I think that's an option. But he plays bishop d6 blindly. It's a blitz game. He just blindly plays. He expects knight f3, I'm sure. By the way, e5 was actually a pretty promising move. White never played knight f3. Why not take advantage of this and play this? All right. So again, blind play by Black, kind of dogmatic play, would get in trouble. So let's speed up to this position. c5 takes. Again, what did we talk about? We talked about two plans. Knight f5 hitting the bishop, right? D takes c possibility. Very comfortable position. So d takes c was in this blitz game. Black took with the knight. Interesting decision. He is willing to accept the IQP, but he wants to challenge the bishop and give the e4 square. It's an interesting move. I would have assumed this is his sort of default answer. We have a standard IQP with knight f5 being quite annoying, but still there is some fight. But okay, he decides to take with the knight. And now White says, I'm just going to play this slowly. Knight c to e2. I'm going to put all my money on this bishop rather than this bishop. You can take that bishop. I will take back with the queen. And this guy is stuck behind the pawn. One of the knights is going to go to d4, or maybe the bishop will. We don't know. But what I love about this example, even though it's not like a high-level game, let's put it that way, but the following middle game is going to be really cool. So let me show you the middle game. So Black plays rook c8, logical move. White plays bishop f5, tempo on the rook. Rook c7, knight f4, and Black says, I'm going to take ef. So it gets better, though. It gets better, guys. Check it out. Knight e4, f3, knight takes hg. Have you seen this pawn structure? You don't get this pawn structure in this opening that often. And can you value this position for me, by the way? With those four pawns that look kind of funny. Two sets of double pawns, but they're all clustered together. So how can you value this one for me? Okay, let's give people some time. Okay, everyone has answered this one very well. I like the answers. Yep, you guys are absolutely spot on. It is, if anybody is better here, it's White by a mile. It's probably like +1 territory, right? And the reason is, even though these pawns look maybe a little bit ugly, they're actually beautiful pawns. They're protecting each other. They can just start moving, unstoppable. Plus, there's queen d4 idea, and we still have the two bishops. And this guy is going to be a big fat pawn on there on b7, sitting there without any counterplay. So let me just show you how the game continued. Queen d4, simple chess. Queen e7, g4. Why not? push those pawns. Queen e3. And then what happened here? Queen takes, rook takes, endgame. The rook is under attack, rook back, rook c1. By the way, endgames are very unpleasant. Again, these pawns are very important because they're going to keep going forward, and the h file is helpful. And let's keep going. Bishop a3, rook's under attack, rook e8, g5. Okay, this is just kind of embarrassing for black. Knight h5 is the only move to not lose a piece. And white has more than one good move by now. I'm just going to show you a little bit more. G3. And this is close to being resignable. The knight has no moves. Rook d7, rook e7 rather, coming to the 7th rank. Again, this is a blitz game, so black keeps on. Rook e1. I don't really understand why he played rook e1 here and blundered knight takes. Did he blunder knight takes g3? Again, this is a blitz game. I have no idea what's going on here. But yeah, this position is absolutely terrible. I probably just rook c7. Although rook c7, bishop a6. Maybe he was worried about this rook e2 idea and the knight takes g3. Like out of nowhere, right, guys? There's this tactic. They have 1 second on the clock. Possibly. I don't know. But this, yeah, this is you have to be a little bit careful, right? To not miss rook e2. So yeah, maybe you don't need to even do that. Maybe the simplest is just bishop d6. If bishop a6, rook c2, and just g4. No counterplay. But yeah, as far as the opening is concerned, you guys are 100% correct. This is just not a very good position with h6g. So let me go back to the Magnus game. And let's go over some key ideas, how black can avoid getting into trouble. So don't blindly repeat a certain setup that you can play against knight f3. Here, after b3, Sam Shanklin recommends this move bishop b4, immediately posing the question to white. How do you protect the knight? White has 2 ways to protect the knight. Both of them are not great. I mean, knight g2 is also a move, but typically you move the bishop. So how would you do this? Typically you play either bishop b2 or bishop d2. So these are the primarily ideas. Both of them have drawbacks. Bishop on d2 is slightly misplaced because you want it to be on b2 for that nice long range attack, right? But it stops this knight e4 idea. So it breaks the pin. Bishop b2 enables this knight e4. This is Sam Shanklin's idea. Black immediately simplifies the game, and after queen c2 plays e5 with still complicated position, but at least black is much closer to equality if he knows how to handle this. Right? So this, I can refer you to the Sam Shanklin's course if you need to know what to do here as black. All right, so this is very important. Now you say, oh, this is easy knowledge. Everybody knows to play bishop b4 here. Is it? Okay, let me do this quick test. Online search. And let's look at some players. Let me just make this. After this move, bishop b4. So let me go back. And to play bishop b2, let's say, right? Okay. So knight e4. Ding knew about this back in 2016. Geary knew about this. Look at this. Duda learned the hard way. He lost to Magnus. Eric Gaisi, he is a monster. Right, guys? So these guys know. Okay. Knight e4 is the move. And there is this knight g2 idea that Wesley tried. There's the queen c2 move, right? And you said, oh, everybody knows e5, Sam Shanklin's move. Do they? Even though e5 is the most common move, Erigaisi, he played f5. That's not the top move. Duda played castles. Harika played c5, right? So you can see that even this position is pretty complex. Not too many people know about this e5 push. That just goes to tell you that opening theory, that not everybody sort of buys Sam Shanklin's course, and opening theory also changes with time. So new ideas and always come up. All right. See what people are saying. Yeah, black has good score in top recent games. Yeah, if they play bishop b4, correct. Okay. So what about bishop b4? Oh, I also mentioned this move c5, changing the pawn structure. Very interesting idea, because b3 may or may not be useful move this early on. So c5 is definitely interesting to try to challenge white here. So this is a totally different sort of structure. But what about this bishop to d2 move? Now that is an interesting setup, because now after castles, white can play both knight f3. White can also play bishop d3, but let's say white plays knight f3 now. Knight bd7. I said lots of games here in the database, because we can get this position with this knight f3 transposition. The queen c2, for example, very rare move, I have to say. Queen e7, this is a logical move. Bishop e2 instead of bishop d3. And then let's say black plays b6. Here, white has some interesting fresh ideas, such as pawn takes. And I said only 2 games in the database with this fresh idea. And if black recaptures with the c pawn, you guys are not going to believe what white's next move is here. Let's see if you can guess. This is not your most obvious move by white. Anybody? h4, castle long, h3, rook g1. Yeah, you're all over the map here. Yeah, not quite, not quite, not quite. King f1. Yeah, h4 alpha 0. Okay, interesting. Anybody else? Well, the move here, guys, is a3. How many of you said a3 in the chat? I couldn't find a single a3 idea. Very cool. Very cool move. Ah, you did say a3. Okay, maybe I missed it. So the point now, if they take on a3, knight b1. That's a crazy idea. Well, bishop b4, there is a move. There's also bishop d6, and then queen c6. So that's the whole point, is that you open up the rook, and after rook b8, you get to take with nice long-term pressure on the 7th rank. So that's why maybe bishop b4 is a better try. Queen c6 anyways, rook a7, same concepts apply here. Knight e4 though, this gives black counterplay, castles, bishop takes, knight e5. Wow, amazing defensive idea. Now white's queen is hit on c6, black's hitting the rook. It looks a total mess, but after queen takes b6, this is just insanity, right? Tactics just keep going. The engines are going crazy, and this position is simplifying into something like this, which you can already guess with best play, black should be able to hold. So anyways, this is just some crazy stuff. If black takes with the c pawn, what about black taking with the e pawn? That's a more natural idea, by the way. And here again, white wants to trade dark square bishops because this guy is stuck behind his pawn. Knight b1 is an interesting try. Again, c6 pawn is under attack in this case. Black can actually sack the pawn with bishop d6. Very interesting idea. Takes, rook b8, castles. Bishop here, here, knight e4. You've seen these kind of concepts in many openings, right? You sack the pawn for initiative, and then you play for maybe f5. But okay, pawn is a pawn after all. And black doesn't have to sack as well. Let me go back just to show you another idea. Black can simply play bishop b7, and this is a purely positional game with knight e4, rook c1, c5, castles. Here there's rook c8, a3, interesting try to break that coordination. If queen takes a3, we can play rook a1, queen here, knight takes, pawn takes, rook a4. This is a cool idea, right, guys? Trying to trap the queen, but there is more tactics, as you can see. E takes f, black sacks the queen. With queen takes a4 next, pawn takes, and it is still pretty messy. Queen f5 is best try, knight c5, and it just keeps going. I would say with rough equality, it's pretty good compensation, being knight and rook for the queen. White's king is a little bit exposed. So just to tell you that there is more room for thought, that this bishop b4 line is not totally done with. I mean, there's after bishop d2, there's lots of play, bishop b2, knight g2, Wesley's idea. This is just a big, big chapter altogether. And after knight bd7, bishop d3, there's bishop b4 here as well, remember that. And after a bishop d6, I mentioned this bishop b2 castles, knight g2. The moment black notices the move knight on e2, and they know the Carlsen Duda game, they will start thinking. They will start thinking and ask questions. Well, do I have to follow the dogmatic approach in chess? Right, guys? Not necessarily. Can you suggest, now that you know all of these ideas, can you suggest, other than the classic queen e7, b6, bishop b7 plan? Okay, let's give people more. Everybody's liking this move e5. And e5 is correct. It's one of the great moves. Once again, you use the tempo that this knight is on e2, not on f3, to break open the center. And the game is going to be pretty complicated. By the way, there's also this interesting idea, rook e8, to not commit the queen to e7, to continue with e5 later on. So this is another interesting try. But let me explore with you guys this e5 idea to see how well you play this, these positions for both sides. I will take. Which way are you going to take, with the pawn or the knight? See what people are saying. Pawn is superior. Most people like to take with the pawn. Okay, let's say you take with the pawn. I think it's a very human decision. Knight takes was interesting, I have to say. I'll take here, guys. Which way are you going to take back? Okay. I've got the big black center, says Hikaru. I don't know about that. You've got an IQP. That's what I see. All right. So you're probably going to take with the knight, I am guessing, and I will play castles. Have you guys seen these kind of structures, the IQP against this formation before? As a matter of fact, Hikaru plays these positions as white. Maybe he doesn't really quite have the knight on e2. Are you going to grab my bishop on d3? And I'm giving you the bishop pair. Bishop g4, I think you guys should play. Knight takes d3. I'll take with the queen. Yes, you have the bishops, but as long as I'm not getting checkmated, I should be okay. So you may want to explore this idea a little bit. Right, guys? Am I getting mated here or no? By the way, king can go to g1, but also king can go to g3. Make sure you see all of the alternatives. So the drawback with king on g1 is queen h4 is being invited. How am I stopping queen mate? Not so easy. Not so easy. Well, you move the rook, then f2 gets hit. Not great. Resign, right? Somebody says resign. All right, so maybe I don't do this, but after king g3, it's actually not that easy for black to generate the attack. But it is definitely a very complex position. I gotta give you that. Any kind of check with the queen I can block on f4. Maybe your queen g5. The drawback of queen g5 is you are walking into f4. There's no queen g6 option. There's no discovery. If you walk to the h file, rook h1. So you're actually probably losing here, guys. After king g3, I think black is busted. Unless you can demonstrate something concrete, white is a piece up. So you see, you got a little bit overexcited with bishop takes h2, and you may lose h5. I can probably just play rook h1, I'm guessing, to meet h4 check, where just rook takes. All right, so that's one of the maybe traps that white sort of invites black to take this pawn on h2. A lot of people may do this in blitz, for instance, but you can end up in trouble. So let me show you after bishop g4 what could happen. White can play h3, bishop h5, queen d2, knight takes. Okay, sooner or later you may take that bishop. I take. And I evaluate this position as a small plus for white. Would you guys agree with me or no? Because black has the IQP and white has this square in front of the pawn. Let's see what people say. Bring idea the rook to 8, but then what? How does that give you the equality? Can you solve the problem with this IQP? I'm not going to take, of course, and walk into tactics. This is a target, right? It's a slow target. Like I can build up to attack this pawn. It's not going anywhere. If I can get my knight maybe to b5, d4, maybe get this knight to f4, and you make you take with the pawn, I can see potential for white. Black is still rock solid. I have to give you that. Two bishops. If you play here, I can just move the queen d2 back, for instance. I would probably still prefer a little bit white long term. Right, guys? So this is very cool line. And finally, the other line where you take with the knight, the engine, I think, prefers knight takes d5. At least I gave it exclam. I don't know how easy this move is. Knight takes, pawn takes. I take on e5. You take back with the knight. So it's kind of similar position, but without the c and the f knight. Okay. So bishop c2 is a possibility now. Let's try to save the bishop. I can also castle. Let's say I do try to save the bishop. This is a cool, interesting idea. Bishop g4, h3, bishop h5. Let's say I castle. Knight f3 check. So now without the f6 knight, if I take gf, the queen says hello to the king. This could be trouble for white. So you see, these kind of ideas could happen in chess, how everything changes all of a sudden. But don't be too happy here for black, because white does not have to walk right into black's plan. I can just simply play king h1, exclam. Right, guys? And here we go. It's still a big fight ahead. Easy. Yeah, king h1, easy. Okay, it's easy for you to say easy, but you have this knight, these two bishops, the queen coming in to say hello. I mean, how many would be scared here to be white? I would be scared to be white. If I don't know exactly that I'm okay here, it looks a little bit scary. Okay, you said not me. Okay. I would be glad to be white. Okay. So now there's queen h4. Now, believe it or not, white is still doing okay, right? Even though it looks extremely scary. Yeah, Eric says the faster time control, the better black here. You're right. You're making like a practical point of view. Like this is, imagine this is Ding against Nepo. Nepo is black. He loves to attack. Ding is a good defender. If he defends this as white, and that's it, black would fall apart. So this is kind of one of those interesting dilemma. Are you a better defender than attacker? Are you unfazed by this pieces being thrown at your king? Right, guys? This is important. You have to know yourself. And now, knight g3. Believe it or not, white is winning. Minus, plus. Black is just dead. All that scary stuff, in reality, is being punished by one accurate move. Remember that move that Ding played, rook g6 self-pin? I am allowing your knight to make a jump, but guess what? Your bishop's gonna be in trouble too. Ultimately, knight g3 decides the game in this line. So this is like a dream defensive tactic, if there is one. Yeah, I didn't really prompt you to ask you to find this tactic. It's not that easy, but I just want to show you the complexity of these positions, that it looks like a lot of the lines black is just checkmating white, but in reality, with one or two accurate defensive move, like that king g3 move, and now this knight g3 move, and all of a sudden black is getting busted, right? Like how do you deal with this? I just want to take on h5 and take on f3, and you're all pinned up everywhere. You take on g3, I will take fg, and then I'll just take on f3 potentially. Like this is probably my simple idea. And will I convert this? What do you think, guys? How easy is it to convert the two bishops against the rook? Kind of my final question for today in terms of evals. See what people are saying. Moderately hard, easy, pretty easy. Should be +3. All right, not bad, not bad. +2. Mostly you guys are correct. This is what we call a matter of technique, and the win is relatively easy. You establish the bishop on d4, the second one on d3. They cover all the invasion squares here and here. You activate the rook. You start causing damage, probably on the king side. You know, you can use the h pawn, the f pawn to push with the rook on g1, or targeting this d5 pawn. So in conclusion for today, let me go back again and walk you through what we learned today. That when you are learning openings, don't blindly follow the setup against any moves by white. So like here, we talked about how black blindly follows this b6 plan to oblivion. And once they play even this logical move c5, after c takes d, every line we looked at is very unpleasant. Yeah, of course, Stockfish, some people said, oh, but Stockfish can always defend. But yeah, good luck if you are playing, not Stockfish. You're the ones who are playing the game. So that's why you have to take every one of these lines. First of all, this is a great weapon for those of you who are white players, right? You can do it against all of these people who play the setup as black. And second of all, as black, as I showed you, you have to be vigilant. First of all, you have to know about this bishop b4. This is Sam Shanklin's recommendation Chessable. And finally, after this knight bd7, we discussed bishop b2 castles. there are lots of different ideas, such as this e5 pawn push, with lots and lots of complications ahead, as we just looked at. So this is what strong players do when they analyze these new ideas, like Magnus Carlsen, like Ding and Nepo. They really go deep in understanding, not just pure memorization or computer lines. You have to understand the ideas and the concepts as well. All right, thank you guys again. This was fun. Hopefully you can use these ideas in your own games. I'll talk to you later. Bye guys.